there dancing.
Hey, I know. I'm sitting here going like this. Hey, awesome. Well, how's everybody doing today?
I'm doing good, doing really good. If I seem to be a little, it's just because I've had to think really, really hard at work today.
Okay.
so,
All
so
right.
if I don't know how many brain cells I've got left, or I think they're just tired. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh man, my brain cells are tired too because so we have had a sick dog.
Oh,
Yeah, and
Aw.
we thought we were really worried about him because he is 16 years old, and we thought maybe this was going to be the end. And of course, it's easy to jump to the worst case scenario, right?
yep.
And so we took him to the vet. He's got a UTI, and so we've been treating the UTI, but it's always worse at night.
Yeah.
And he will be needing to go out like multiple times. And so there were a couple nights where I hardly slept. This was before the vet appointment. And yeah, and then he gets just like seniors, people, if they have a UTI, especially if they already have dementia, it'll make their dementia worse. It does
Yeah.
that with him. Yeah. So I think cognitively he has a little bit of like doggy sundowners going on, and he'll just a couple times he just kind of got up, stood, stared at me and peed.
Oh man, poor
I'm so
guy.
sorry.
I know. So yeah, so that's been my last week or so of just like dealing with that. But he's getting better. He's had, I think, 3 or 4 doses now of the antibiotics. And yeah, so there is light at the end of the tunnel. But
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad it's not something fatal. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, and my poor husband was getting so emotional because I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, because we were still having issues with him, I think, last week when we were online. But this dog will barely tolerate you holding him like a baby. And yeah, he's okay with it, but he just doesn't like that position for very long. And there was one day where he fell asleep in my husband's arms
Oh wow.
like that. And my husband just said, he's dying. And we was sitting there holding him and he's crying. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he's
Yeah.
just not feeling well, and so it was a relief to find out that it was just a UTI. But I mean, with UTIs, older dogs, it could be an indication of something worse. And we've had tons of blood work and stuff done with him, and his liver enzymes are a little elevated, and his kidney functions of like mild kidney disease. So we shall see. But yeah. So I'm doing pretty good, but can't say my brain is at full capacity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing pretty good, but my son just went into his class and he just texted me that nobody's in there. So I don't know.
Oh wow.
I don't know if he didn't have class
Oh my goodness.
or what, but if that's the case, I'm not going to be able to sit here in this parking lot with him in the car.
How much snow have you gotten? You were telling us before we went live that you're having some snow. I wonder if they canceled it because of that.
It's just starting.
Okay.
Evidently, my older son said we're supposed to get a lot, so I don't know if maybe they canceled and he doesn't know about it.
Huh.
What? I mean,
Well, we can get started, and if he comes and you need to.
I tell you what I can do is I can just I could just like turn my camera off and then once I got home or so, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
whatever you want. Yeah.
But yeah, you guys
We'll
definitely
make it work. Hey, Josephine. Good to have you here.
Hey.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, for those of you if you have never been here with us before, we are going through this textbook. It is a big medical textbook. It is called Ketogenic, the Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health. And it is not a book club where we read ahead. We read as we go and discuss as we go and hopefully learn as we go. So last week we had a lengthy discussion about living off of fat versus dietary fat. And
Mhm.
and yes, and so Carrie, I do believe that you are right in your whole idea about how it's kind of basically saying you can get into the phase 2 of fasting, and you do need dietary fat because of the omega 3s and omega 6s, hopefully more omega 3s, but which you don't have. So I don't know, Kim, did I text both of you that
You did.
chat
Well,
GPT?
you texted it to the group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, I'm trying to see where I texted it, because I just asked Chat GPT, like, what's the difference between, um, basically nutritionally from adipose tissue versus dietary fat. And okay,
Yeah.
so all right, so it says when body fat is burned during weight loss, it primarily provides energy, not nutrients. So here's how it works. So energy. So number one, energy release. Fat cells store energy as triglycerides. During weight loss, these triglycerides are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, which are then used by the body as fuel. So it's basically like the fat is like a fuel storage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a nutrient storage. This process provides energy, but not essential nutrients like vitamin, minerals, or protein. And then byproducts, as fat is metabolized, it produces carbon dioxide and water as byproducts. Carbon dioxide is exhaled, while water can be used by the body or lost as sweat and urine. And then the nutrients depend on diet. Since fat loss doesn't provide vitamins, minerals, or amino acids, a nutrient-rich diet is crucial during weight loss to support bodily functions, maintain muscle, and sustain health. So body fat stores the energy, not the essential nutrients. So dietary fat is a concentrated source of energy, provides 9 calories per gram, twice the amount of carbs. It is good for energy, but it does have essential fatty acids like omega 3s, omega 6s, which are essential because the body cannot produce them. They play key roles in brain function, cell membrane structure, inflammatory response. Also, fat-soluble vitamins. Dietary fat is necessary to the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Without enough fat in the diet, the body can't properly absorb these vitamins, which is vital for immune function, bone health, blood clotting, and antioxidant structure. And then fats are a component of cell structure membranes and play a role in cell signaling, helping cells communicate and respond to environmental changes. And then also hormone production. Fats are involved in producing hormones, especially steroid hormones, which are crucial for growth, metabolism, and reproductive health. So, these are all things that I knew, and my brain was just completely blanking on me last week when we were talking about it.
Well,
So,
we hear so much too. I mean, there's so much information out there, and people, because fat, of course, comes with the meat and it's something that you can eat, but then we also call what's on our bodies fat. So it's understandable that there's confusion about it.
Well,
And it's not clear sometimes.
Yeah, and it's confusing when the book is talking about how it's talking about high fat intake, like oral intake, and then it says or high body fat, So it's it's from the fasting perspective, it's can use either of those. But from the nutrient perspective, vitamin absorption perspective, cellular function, you need the dietary fat. So I have found that I've been figuring out how much I need. So I've gone the last 2 weeks without any adding extra fat.
Uh-huh.
And I think I broke my stall.
Oh.
But I also stopped all the Zevias that I was drinking. Those are they are addictive. They were keeping me from wanting dessert, but all I wanted was more Zevias. So
yeah.
See, I think those things taste so nasty.
It's amazing.
I've never had one.
They're awful.
Some of them taste better than others.
I actually returned them to the store. I got them. I had a coupon, so I got some. This was years ago when they first came out. And I don't know if it was just the flavor I got, but it was awful.
The first time I tried it was just the regular cola flavor.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, ugh. Yeah. So I kind of found flavor, and I don't like a lot of the flavors, but I did find a couple flavors that I like the root beer and the cream soda, that I did like, but I liked it too much. And it's, it all goes back to what we know about stevia too. Stevia can be a problem. So
yeah, this right here is this is what I drink. The Kroger, most of the time, is the Kroger brand seltzer.
okay.
That's what I drink.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll pour it in a glass and put some element or some kind of electrolytes. I mean, here's how out of it I am, though. I heard that there's some kind of a thing. I need to watch Dr. Berry's video, or maybe y'all can enlighten me, because there was some kind of a thing saying that element had sugar in it.
Yeah,
maltodextrin.
maltodextrin. In fact, but while I was waiting to start, I was actually watching Dr. Berry's video from 5 days ago. I hadn't gotten into it a ton, where he interviewed a guy that's part of Element. Did you watch that, Kim?
No.
Yeah, so I'm anxious to see, to watch the rest of it, because he interviews a friend of his who actually is part of the company of Element.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's addressing that, but
yeah,
I mean,
I don't use it all the time.
Minimal. It was so minimal that it wasn't even like, to my understanding, that it didn't even warrant them listing it on the ingredients. And I guess if you're not past a certain point, you don't have to list it or something.
Yeah, and I think sounds like the controversy was they had originally disclosed that there was 4 milligrams in a packet, and then it came out that there was somewhere between 250 and 500 milligrams. And so I think that's where the controversy was, is it was so much more than what they had disclosed.
Oh.
And the little bit
I don't know. I haven't
caught, he said that, the equivalent amount of sugar, it would be like 1,000 or 1,000, I think he said like something like thousands of milligrams of sugar would be the equivalent to what they put in. So I'm going to have to finish.
What?
I don't remember how he worded it. He said, or maybe he said that other electrolyte packets will have like a lot more sugar. I don't know. He was saying that it really is still not much.
I mean, you can still get the unflavored and it doesn't have it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I mean, if it's I think most people that are carnivores aren't usually going to be drinking the flavored anyway. If they're hardcore.
I was.
Were you?
Yeah.
I guess everybody's different. I would, like when I was carnivore, I would drink it because I wasn't that hardcore. But some people are, and I can understand why people would feel duped, because some people are just very conscientious of every little thing that goes in their body, and they don't want to feel duped. They don't want to spend their hard-earned money on something that's not actually what it says it is,
Yeah.
So I don't blame them.
And if you're at a point in your journey where you're maybe stuck a little bit and you're trying to figure out why, and then you find out that you really didn't have all the information about a product that you're using, I can see why people could be upset about that. It's like,
I mean, I just have trouble believing though that amount would like really hinder your progress, because most people aren't drinking more than 1 or 2 of those a day, if that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just think sometimes we take this a little far, but then again, I wasn't super hardcore.
And some people may be more sensitive than others. And so I don't know. I just think that transparency is
that's the key right there. Is you have to be transparent. If you're a company, people probably wouldn't even have cared if they would have just said our product has blah 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 in it. So I think that's where the problem lies, is really just people don't want to feel duped. They want to feel like you're telling them the truth.
So was there some kind of independent testing where somebody found this out, or I mean, like, was it like somebody who was undercover exposed it? I mean,
I don't know. I haven't really been following.
I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe someone watching knows, but I don't know.
It had to have been somebody that tested it, but I don't know who it was because I've only kind of caught a little bit of it, and it really didn't, like, it totally does not affect whether or not I would include it in my diet at all.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I've still got
even if I was strict carnivore, I would still, like, it wouldn't affect it at all for me. But that's me,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some, and I use like maybe anywhere when I use it, I'll use anywhere between like a half a packet or a packet a day.
Yeah.
If I use in a day, if I use it, and I don't use it every day. Like I haven't used any, and it's not been a conscious thing of saying, oh, well, that's got whatever sugar in it, I'm not going to use it. It's just because I figured it's probably not like, I figured that it was, them saying it had sugar in it. I mean, I guess it seemed a bit sensationalized to me, just what little I saw of it. And so I was like, well, I'm not really worried about it. And what little amount that I usually use anyway, but I haven't used any in a few days simply because I cycle through. Like if I go on a hike or something like that, I'll take a packet of Element with me to put in my water. And if I've, done like a lot of cleaning around the house, maybe, or get myself tired or something like that, or a long walk, or just feel like I need it, I might use it, but it's not something that I use every day, and I don't use a lot of it. So I don't think that the amount would really matter. Yeah. But I was just curious. That's interesting. I'll have to watch that video.
Yeah, I'm going to finish watching it. I switched out my electrolytes, and it wasn't because of the scandal with Element. It was because I switched to Dr. Ben Lynch's optimal electrolytes after watching him talk about cellular hydration and the Element being higher sodium, being more likely to be drawing fluid out of your interstitial spaces in your cells. And the balance of his electrolytes has more potassium and magnesium and less sodium to kind of drive fluid into the cells. And so I always have issues with, my doctor thinks I'm chronically dehydrated. My hemoglobin and hematocrit are always at the upper end of normal, sometimes a little over the upper end of normal. And so I thought, well, why don't I switch the electrolytes out and see if that makes a difference?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can notice a difference in the taste. I mean, Element has a stronger taste as far as if you do a flavor, whatever flavor you do, it is a very stronger flavor. And I guess the maltodextrin supposedly is like a flavor carrier, and that's the purpose of it. So the optimal electrolytes, the flavor is much more subtle. So I'm wondering if that means maybe it doesn't have maltodextrin. I don't know. But, and then I've been kind of messing around with my sodium because I don't know if maybe I was getting too much and I was a little bit dehydrated. So I've been kind of tweaking things for myself for that reason. And I'm noticing though, seem to be doing better without.
And I think it is easier to get dehydrated on carnivore. You have to be careful, because since you're not getting water in all of the extra stuff that you're eating, like, most people would be in their diet, you have to just kind of tweak things a little.
Yeah.
But after a while, I feel like you kind of get it down, and
I don't feel like I ever really got it down very much for myself, but it may be, I mean, I just watching that video of Dr. Lynch was like, okay, maybe it's because I'm more, he said maybe cellular dehydrated because, I always think that there's a balancing act, right? You don't want to become volume depleted, vascularly dehydrated, right? But you don't want to be cellular dehydrated either. It's just a matter of where's your fluid in your body. So like, how do you find that balance between making sure your cells are hydrated and you're not volume depleted? So I don't know, maybe doing too much sodium. If I was already cellularly depleted, maybe doing too much sodium was drawing too much,
Yeah, it could very well.
Yeah, maybe didn't have enough of a reserve to handle the sodium.
I would think it could very well. I don't know. I was going to say something else and I've totally forgotten what it was. But Evan's back in the car. His class is not.
Hi.
They're not having their
Not
class.
having class. Okay. All right.
No, I don't know if maybe we missed a message. He checked his email and didn't see anything, but there was only like one other person in the class.
Yeah.
They were confused too. So
Okay. Well, whatever you decide to do is fine. If you need to drive home or whatever, that's fine.
I'll probably need to do that because we're just sitting in a parking lot.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, you want to just switch your camera off and just kind of.
Yeah, I'll probably just do that.
Okay. Well, mute your audio so we don't hear your car.
Oh, I will.
All right. Well, Carrie and I can get started. And so I had forgot to mark where we left off. I had the page mark, but I also have like a Post-it note that I put right above the section. And I had forgotten.
That's funny. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see, but so that's where we are.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you did that because I got my regular bookmark that I put so I can it sticks out of the book. And then I got the Post-it note so I can know which section we're on. So, okay. So we left off at the section 2.3.2.7 called acetoacetate is the proto-ketone body. Okay, this sounds like it's going to be chemistry related. So we may have to go slow through this one.
Yeah, I might have some questions.
Yeah, so Kim, pay attention. Whenever you get home, maybe you can chime in. I'm trying to see if I have a diagram. Does figure 2.4 in this section? Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the 2.4 diagram. This is what we're looking at in the book. And hopefully as we read that maybe this will make sense. I don't know. Hopefully it will. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start, I guess.
Okay.
And then I have to remember what BOHB stands for.
It's beta hydroxybutyrate.
That's right. Beta hydroxybutyrate. Okay. Although we use beta hydroxybutyrate for measurement, acetoacetate, or ACAC, is the central ketone body. It is the parent because both acetone and beta hydroxybutyrate are derived from it. It is also the form that is used for energy and for synthesis of lipids, so fat and cholesterol. Beta hydroxybutyrate has to be reverted to acetoacetate before it can be used for anything. An overview of these pathways is given in figure 2.4, and then they give you a reference for further details. So it basically says the BOHB is the beta hydroxybutyrate. It goes to acetoacetate, which turns to acetone, and then it feeds into a cycle, I guess. And okay, so I don't know. This is pretty complicated. I don't think I want to spend like a zillion hours on trying to figure that out. Okay, so acetone is generated spontaneously through decarboxylation. Since the generation of acetone requires no energy, acetoacetate may be considered unstable. This instability has been proposed as a functional reason why acetoacetate largely gets converted to beta hydroxybutyrate in the keto adapted. Okay, so that's why there was the up arrow and the down arrow between those two in the diagram.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of go back and forth because the acetoacetate is unstable. It could easily convert back. So, okay.
And then there's the cycles, like with de novo lipogenesis, and then the cholesterol synthesis, and so it goes back. And so I think that's what contributes to it, because you see the orange colored arrows.
Yeah, I'll put that back up.
So it's going back and forth. So I think that's what it's saying.
Yeah. So so it's unstable. So it kind of sounds like it wants to return to that original form. So it gets largely converted back to beta hydroxybutyrate in the keto adapted to keep it from degrading. In other words, beta hydroxybutyrate is seen by some as a storage or reserve form of ketone body, keeping it for use as required. Biochemically, the ratio of acetoacetate to beta hydroxybutyrate is driven by redox potential. And it says see NAD redox state below. We haven't gotten to that yet. In support of the idea that beta-hydroxybutyrate is primarily a storage mechanism, studies examining high levels of ketosis show that over time, serum acetoacetate rises, but quickly plateaus at about 1.2 millimoles, whereas beta-hydroxybutyrate continues to rise, passing 4. And so that's what we test when we test, right? Let me just kind of go back and make sure I'm up to speed on this. So when we're actually testing for ketosis, we're looking at the serum beta-hydroxybutyrate, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is why this is important. And then the acetoacetate is what's measured in the urine.
Oh, wait a minute. No, it says in support of the idea that beta-hydroxybutyrate is primarily a storage mechanism, studies examining high levels of ketosis show that over time serum acetoacetate rises. So it's the
not
serum.
as much.
Yeah.
But in the previous section, the second paragraph, it says we typically use beta-hydroxybutyrate concentration to confirm ketosis, and that it's currently the most accurate to measure, although breath acetone measuring technology is rapidly improving. And then acetoacetate can be measured in urine, but this method has a couple problems. So can be affected by urinary dilution.
So I guess it's just saying then that you measure the beta-hydroxybutyrate and then the serum acetone or the acetone, not the regular acetone, the acetoacetone, I guess is what that is, rises but quickly plateaus. So you can't depend on it in the serum.
Yeah. And it also is unstable and wants to convert back to beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is why the previous paragraph said many keto-adapted individuals may be negative for acetoacetate in the urine, despite having measurable ketosis as defined by serum beta-hydroxybutyrate. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood the significance of this. Okay. Whereas the beta-hydroxybutyrate continues to rise, passing 4 millimoles in children fed ketogenic diets and over 5 millimoles in the ketosis of fasting. In other words, after a quick initial rise, more generation of ketone bodies increases beta-hydroxybutyrate, but not acetoacetate. Moreover, beta-hydroxybutyrate has no other metabolic fate but to be returned to acetoacetate. So it's kind of a back and forth thing with those two. So there would seem to be no other benefit to its generation. So acetone has historically been considered an accidental waste product because it is produced spontaneously from acetoacetate and because it is so small in quantity. However, history warns us against making this assumption. Many substances that were once thought to be waste products, including the other ketone bodies, were later discovered to have functions. At least 2 proposed acetone functions called the judgment into question. First, as previously stated, animal models have shown that acetone can be a significant substrate for gluconeogenesis. Based on these experiments, it is estimated that up to 59% of all acetone produced could be used for this purpose, accounting for up to 11% of gluconeogenic needs. Second, it may play a critical role in pH and fuel regulation because metabolic routes for acetone have been described. It cannot further be regarded as a waste product of metabolism.
And you know what? You still hear that a lot.
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah, we do hear that all the time, that acetone is just a waste product. So it does have a function.
And so I guess if like I have in the past had that acetone smell to my breath. And so I guess if you get to that point, then you must really have a lot of it. And so in that case, your body is eliminating it. Like you might have more than what you need.
More than what you need, more than what metabolically your need is. So, hey, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
Good to have you here. She says, holy biochemistry.
Right.
Yes, you. And Amy's here.
Yes.
Amy, oh, you're not super late. We were just shooting the breeze for a little while. And for those of you who came, Kim, her son's class was canceled, so she's driving home. So she's got her mic and her camera off, but she is here and listening in.
Yeah, it is snowing in her neck of the woods,
Yes.
and they are expecting to get, I don't know what a lot means up there.
Yeah, but hopefully she's not shaking her head at us. So, okay, I can read one more section, then I'll hand it over to you.
Okay.
Okay, so section 2.3.2.8 is the section title says, in humans, the use of ketone bodies for peripheral energy proportionally decreases the more they are available. Okay, so acetoacetate can be used to generate energy in many tissues, including skeletal muscle. However, from a functional perspective, the primary use of ketone bodies is to provide fuel for the brain in the presence of low glucose availability. As a result, it would be counterproductive for tissues that can use fat to make liberal use of ketone bodies, and we should not be surprised to see sparing effects. Indeed, the metabolic clearance rate, or MCR, of ketone bodies, or the rate at which they are used by muscle tissue, decreases as concentration increases in humans. This reduction appears to be exponential, dropping very quickly as ketonemia approaches 1 to 2 millimoles per liter. So that's ketones in the blood. This is consistent with an adaptation effect where higher concentrations of ketone bodies signal their preservation for the brain. That's amazing. That's almost the opposite of the homeostasis that we've learned so much about in a lot of the other books that we've read. It's like the body wants to maintain a homeostasis in so many areas, but this area, it seems very different, that the higher your ketone bodies get, the more it wants to preserve them for the brain. It doesn't want to bring them down into back them down into a level of homeostasis.
Well, and I have heard Dr. Berry and others say that the brain actually prefers ketones.
Yes.
Which kind of goes against the whole, which we knew that carbohydrates aren't essential. But at the same time, that's what we're told, that you have to have carbohydrates to get the glucose for the brain. But in fact, the brain uses glucose in a lot of it, but it also favors ketones.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense then, like when they talk about like people with Alzheimer's and different, other cognitive issues, that using like either a ketogenic diet and using like stuff like MCT oil and stuff like that gives the brain more fuel, and they actually notice improvement. Like Amy Berger, which I just love her, and she's one of the first people that I discovered, and she actually has a book called The Alzheimer's Antidote, which talks about that. And that book came out a long time ago. I mean, probably like 8 or 9 years ago. I mean, that book's been out for a good while. Yeah,
type
exactly.
Type 3 diabetes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Feeding the brain more than it needs.
And so I think a lot of people are learning that, more and more about the brain and what it really requires. I mean, people just presume because of the whole glucose and then trying to maintain this, especially the people who are diabetic, because they're eating all these carbs. And so then, of course, if your sugar drops because you're taking insulin and stuff, well, of course, you have to get your sugar level back up. But they're conflating that with what your body really needs, I think.
Yeah. And the brain seems just to be sometimes some of the functioning is just different than other parts of the body. So Kim,
there is that blood-brain.
Take the snow for you.
Yeah, there is that blood-brain barrier too. And so it's very, the brain is picky about, or the brain is sensitive to, I guess you could say maybe, or the body is aware of what the brain needs. And it's so aware of that there's that blood-brain barrier where you really, I mean, it filters out like
Yeah,
what can
it'll
go
stop
in there
things
and what
from
can't.
entering. Yeah. So Amy says, don't they even call them essential carbs? That's not a real thing. Right, right. Your body
Right.
makes essential carbs on its own. Exactly. There are no essential carbs that you need from your diet. Whatever you need, your body can make. So there are other essential nutrients, but none of them are from things you can't find in other animal products. So
Yep.
yeah, there is no essential carb that you need to consume in your diet. So, okay, interesting. Okay. Yeah, so that was an interesting adaptation for the brain that the more ketone bodies you get, the more it hangs on to preserves those for the brain. So in the experiments of exercise, let's see, in the experiments of exercise, did appear, this is a weirdly worded sentence, so sorry if I stumble over this. Okay, in the experience of exercise, sorry, that's a weird, is it just me or is that a weird sentence?
No, I think what it is, they're referring to reference number 76.
Yeah, I don't think
And
the word of, I don't think the word of is supposed to be there.
So I think it's meaning like in the experiments of
comma,
reference
exercise.
76, exercise did appear to raise this threshold.
Okay,
I think it's how
exercise,
that's
yeah, okay.
meant.
So in the experiments of whatever number 76 references,
Yeah.
exercise did appear to raise this threshold by approximately 0.5 millimole per liter, suggesting that in the context of exercise, muscles will use more ketone bodies if available, but only to a point. The pattern of sparing still applies. This response may be unique to humans or more acute in humans than in other animals. Aerobic exercise acutely lowered by acetoacetate and beta hydroxybutyrate in a study of 36-hour fasted rats, which then rose again after the exercise. This would imply use by muscle tissue followed by accumulation, as the decrease in production lags slightly behind the decrease in demand. In a human study with keto-adapted athletes, however, aerobic exercise did not lower acetoacetate and instead acutely increased beta hydroxybutyrate. This implies that ketogenesis increased by more than what was used, and that as in the at-rest case, acetoacetate concentrations plateau with any excess being converted to beta hydroxybutyrate. Interestingly, in these keto-adapted athletes, both the baseline concentration and the concentration at which acetoacetate stabilizes as beta hydroxybutyrate rises were much lower than in the previous studies of fasted adults and children on ketogenic diets. Anecdotally, keto-adapted athletes have a lower baseline ketonemia than those who use ketogenic diets for weight loss or epilepsy. This could be explained simply by fat excess levels. Those losing weight will have more fat available from adipose tissue than lean athletes, whereas those on medical ketogenic diets for epilepsy eat high levels of fat, specifically to raise ketonemia to therapeutic levels. It would also reflect a position on the MCR curve as described above. That is, a combination of lower circulating fat due to lower fat mass and increased exercise may simply reduce skeletal muscle ketone sparing above the MCR threshold. In support of this, it should be noted that when fat intake is sufficiently high, even lean individuals can have higher ketonemia, as evidenced by the ketogenic macronutrient ratios used for therapeutic ketosis in epilepsy. What appears to stay in common is the acetoacetate to beta hydroxybutyrate ratio. Okay, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yes. So Amy says your liver and kidneys convert amino acids into glucose to fuel cells, brain, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to
Liver
eat
does-
glucose because your body can make it.
Yes, exactly.
Your body will make what it needs.
Yes. So, okay. So, I mean, I don't know how much we need to fully understand this, but it basically, I don't know, what are you understanding about what it's saying about the athletes?
Okay, let's see. Let's look at this. Okay, they have a lower baseline ketonemia than those who use ketogenic diets. So in other words, I think it's saying that for one thing, it was talking about the weight again, like if you were losing weight versus, where did that part go? A combination of lower circulating fat due to lower fat mass and increased exercise may simply reduce the skeletal muscle ketone sparing.
So, okay, so they may not preserve as much of the ketones for the brain when they're where then they're the athletes. Does that sound right?
No, I think actually it's not. They're not saving the ketones for the brain because the muscle's actually using more of them. So they're not saving as many for the brain as you normally would.
Yeah, which is why it says the keto adapted athletes have lower baseline ketonemia or ketones in the blood than those who are using a ketogenic diet for weight loss or epilepsy. So that makes sense.
So yeah, okay. So then they did, and it said, so what does appear to stay in common is the acetoacetate beta hydroxybutyrate ratio. So the body, from what I can tell, then the body does tightly regulate that.
That's what it sounds like. And since there's that back and forth as far as the stability of the acetoacetate converting back to the beta hydroxybutyrate, maybe it just kind of makes adjustments to keep the ratio in balance.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like having what is it? That small amount. What is it? 3 teaspoons or so. I mean, it's a ridiculously low amount of glucose that's in a person's body. I mean, we eat as a society way more
than we need,
and which is why people's bodies are rebelling. So because I think it's regulating it very similar to how the body regulates how much glucose you have. Like it will do anything. It will, release as much insulin as it needs or just whatever to get that level of glucose back to that, to that optimal level. So this is kind of along the same lines that there are mechanisms there that keeps that acetoacetate and beta hydroxybutyrate ratio just tightly regulated.
Yeah.
To a specific,
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I got out of it too.
All right.
You want to pick up?
Yeah, I'll pick up. Okay. 2.3.2.9. Acetoacetate is also used for lipid synthesis, but this does not appear to account for low ketonemia in lean athletes. So, okay, we're going to delve a little bit more into that in this section.
Yeah.
Okay. As mentioned above, acetoacetate is used for de novo lipogenesis and cholesterol synthesis. It is the preferred substrate for this in the liver. Oh, and you know what? I'll bet you this is going to get, I'm interrupting myself, but I just had a thought. You know how all of this about the cholesterol levels going up, the lean mass hyperresponders.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is getting into some of what's behind that.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me, because I don't pretend to understand everything that, his name just escaped me, but anyway,
Nick Norwitz.
Yes, thank you. That Nick Norwitz talks about. I don't pretend to understand all of it, but I've heard just enough to make myself dangerous. So I'm picking up on some of this. Okay, so
I'm in that same boat.
Okay, so as mentioned above, acetoacetate is used for de novo lipogenesis and cholesterol synthesis. It is the preferred substrate for this in the liver as well as in the brain, which is primarily important developmentally, given that brains are largely constructed of fat and cholesterol and that much of this is synthesized in situ. This is thought to explain why the perinatal period is characterized by mild ketosis. Yeah, and people don't realize how much the brain, how much like developing, like people when you just don't get a proper nutrition anyway, but then the meats and the fats that that are building blocks, and it's scary to think how many people think they're being healthy by limiting that stuff, especially while they're pregnant. I mean, and they have to take all these vitamins, which I'm not saying don't take prenatal vitamins by any means, but I am, because you need all the vitamins you can get. But at the same time, it's no wonder they need all the vitamins, because they're not getting it from the meat. They're not getting everything.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is that even though, yes, they're taking the vitamins, they're not taking it in a very good bioavailable form.
That's true too.
Much of it is synthetic and just is not really what the body is asking for. It's a synthetic alternative.
And it takes a lot to build a human. I mean, it takes a lot just to maintain you, but then you have that little life growing in there. And, I mean, you hear about like women whose teeth go bad and whatever. I mean, if you're not getting the correct nutrients, nature says, screw you, we're taking care of the next generation. We're going to make sure that baby's okay. So, that's
and you don't want it pulling, your body during pregnancy, pulling minerals from your bones,
right.
and wasting your own muscle. And I mean, you need to be strong and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, So, and the body will do that. It'll do that,
Yep.
It's like, if you're not giving it what it needs, it's going to harvest what it needs from inside your body, which is going to result in more brittle bones and weaker muscles and lower muscle mass. And,
Yeah, I think that's why I think the nutrition, and people think they're doing the right thing. And I think that's a big part of why there are so many illnesses and things with kids, even born with them. And I'm not saying that it's the fault of a parent if their child has a problem, but I'm saying that I think that certainly the nutrition can contribute to that, because something is causing all these problems.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some things that you can't control. I mean, I remember in nursing school when we were going through the OBGYN section, and they were telling us that, there's some, I don't know if this is always the case, but they were saying that there's been a connection between birth defects and the mother being exposed to a virus. And it doesn't always happen, but they said that, exposure or getting a cold or something during pregnancy, whatever part of the baby is developing at that point can end up having
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So that's something that's completely outside of the control of the mother,
And sometimes there are true genetic problems that, that you just inherit, just based on your genetics.
Yeah. I mean, look at Down syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a genetic variation, and that's something that just gets passed down.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never heard I don't know. Have you ever heard of a diet being able to affect genes on that level?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, that's an extra chromosome. So.
Yeah. So genetics is a totally separate thing, but I think there are a lot of things that are preventable, but people think they're doing the right thing because that's what they've been told. Either that, or they just, I don't think that very many people out there just like don't care. I think when a person finds out that they're pregnant, they generally try to do what's best for the baby.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look what happened decades ago when women learned that smoking and drinking during pregnancy was harmful to their babies. What they do, they stopped.
Yep.
So I think it's just a matter of having the education as to what's going to be healthiest to consume during pregnancy. And there's people who think the best thing they can do is to have a vegetarian diet. And, did I tell you guys about the video that I watched with the midwife who showed the placenta of I don't know if it was a vegan or a vegetarian mom. in
Oh yeah, and
Yeah, one of
how
the
like it was like pale looking, and it just
pale, and it had like fibrous. It was kind of fibrous as far as like the texture was. Yeah, it was had all this like fibrous material in it. It was very pale, and then the carnivore mom was just soft and just blood infused, and because that's so important for the baby. You got to have that blood flow, right? And it was just unbelievable.
Hey guys.
Hey there.
hey.
Hey, sorry, I just got home. Guess what? Our
What?
power's out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I've got to go. Yeah,
Okay.
our power's out, so I've got to go. I got to help my husband get the generator going and all that.
Absolutely.
So sorry,
Oh man,
guys.
I am so sorry,
That's
Kim.
okay. You listen later, and you can comment, correct us if we're totally off base on anything.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll see y'all.
Okay.
All right. Take
Bye.
care. Y'all be
Bye.
safe.
Yep. Yeah, I know. It's true.
Oh,
It's like sometimes
wow.
you know enough to be dangerous, right? So
Yeah. So Lord hope. Yeah. I'm
yeah,
just
I hope
learning,
it.
folks. I'm learning. So, if somebody knows or can clarify something that I have misspoken on.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's funny because sometimes I feel like, I know enough to sound like I know enough.
Exactly. Same here. And I'll have people, like I have friends and stuff who will ask me stuff. And some things I know pretty well, but then there are other things I'm just like, eh. And
I
I'll tell
know.
them to search for Dr. Barry or
Yeah, that's right. That's
I was
right.
like, Dr. Barry's probably got a video about that.
I'm glad that Kim has a generator, because last thing
I
you
am
want
too.
is to have no power and it's snowing.
Well, and I've actually been talking about getting one. And
Yeah.
I do have a fireplace, which is a good thing. And I've
Yeah.
got lots of candles. So, and I've got firewood. I've got a lot of firewood.
We
But
talked
still,
off and on about getting a generator. We had a windstorm 2 nights ago, and it's amazing because it hit us here, but not nearly like where my daughter and son-in-law live, which is just like 20 minutes north of us. Oh my goodness, it hit them really bad, and they had the power outages, and they have trees falling all over the place and branches all over the road, and accidents, and we had one tree in our neighborhood that fell over, which was weird because it must have had shallow roots. It was a really thick tree, and I think somebody at night came out from one of our neighbors came out and like got the chainsaw, and because this thing fell right across the main road coming into our neighborhood. And I drove by, and the trunk was probably, like that big. It was a big tree. Yeah. And to cut it and it must have taken a truck or something with a chain and dragged the pieces off the road. So it's still sitting there. But yeah, so every once in a while, yeah. Amy says you had a hurricane. Yeah, it wasn't a hurricane. We never get to hurricane level, but we get to crazy windstorm where trees fall and things fly at you and the power lines go down.
I think it sounds like straight line winds, and we've actually had those before. I mean, where like it's not really a tornado; they just call it straight line winds, and it's just this wall of wind that just comes and wrecks.
Yeah, that might be it. And we usually, at least like once, maybe twice at the most, but usually just one time every winter, or late fall, we have this type of a windstorm. And but it seems like north of us catches it way more than we do. So we've talked about getting a generator, but we haven't done it. We'll probably regret it if we end up needing it.
Well, and then there's one, what is it? 4 Patriots is the company, and they actually, and I haven't priced them though, so I don't know. I have bought the cell phone things that they have. It says like you can put it out in the sun and it charges it.
Yeah.
You have to. And I got those for my kids and several friends and stuff for Christmas a couple years ago. And I got a couple for myself because we do have the tornadoes and stuff that'll come through, or we'll just have storms that, and you need your cell phone. And I don't have a vehicle anymore that I can, like my Xterra, you could actually just plug a cell phone charger in, and even if the car wasn't running, it would charge it. Well, my Rogue doesn't do that. And a lot of the newer cars don't do it. They'll charge it while it's running, but if the vehicle is off, it won't charge.
Yeah.
So I made sure that, but I've gotten those, but that same company makes generators, and they have a solar panel that unfolds, and you can charge it that way, or you can plug it in and charge it electrically, I think.
I got one of those big block charging stations that you can plug pretty much anything into it. We keep it charged in case of that. And I do have a solar thing you can fold out that you can, plug into it and get, kind of charge it. But, I'm in Washington, it's overcast. So it's not like we got a bunch of full sun. We have sun every day, some sun, but, so Amy says that a hurricane that hit the East Coast, first time since 15 years. Oh, interesting. So the power banks you gave to charge them and use them over a few months so the batteries don't die for good. Yeah, we keep them charged. Yeah. So, but originally I got it because I had sleep apnea and I was using a CPAP machine, and I needed to have it. I couldn't have the power going out. And so that's the original reason why we bought it, was so that in case we had a power outage that lasted all night, I can plug my CPAP machine into it. But I don't have sleep apnea anymore. So that's no longer a need.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay. All right.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So, all right. So the umbilical cord carries high concentrations of ketones, and breast milk is rich in medium chain triglycerides, which infants use to generate ketone bodies. Moreover, the extensive adipose tissue of human babies compared to other animals is used to support the energy and growth of our brains. And now I have heard that, whenever you've, like the fact that we've, that babies are naturally in ketosis. I've heard, Dr. Berry and Dr. Chafee talk about that. Okay.
Yeah. I know if you don't want a skinny baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know
and
what?
That's part of, and that our heads, because of the fact that we had bigger brains and stuff like that, that was why most animals, when they're born, or mammals, I should say, when they're born, they're not that, their bodies aren't that big. They don't have that much fat on them.
Yeah.
But people, humans, Homo sapiens sapien, I always hear Dr. Berry saying that. Homo sapiens sapien, they have lots of fat on them. Okay. It is estimated that up to 75% of cholesterol synthesis can come from acetoacetate, and up to half of other newly synthesized lipids. Synthesizing lipids from acetoacetate, which itself is derived from lipids, may seem futile, but it is important to note that so-called futile cycles are not truly futile. That's a tongue twister, okay, but provide leverage for regulation. Some prefer the term substrate cycle for this reason. When such substrate cycles are in place, small changes in enzymatic rates can produce very large changes in the net flux of a substrate. As a result, substrate cycles provide mechanical advantage. Fatty acids can also stimulate VLDL cholesterol production, which helps transport triglycerides from the liver to the periphery. Triglycerides transported by VLDL can be an important source of energy in lean individuals with low carbohydrate intake. So this is starting to get, I think, into some of that factors into the lean mass hyperresponders, is what it sounds like.
Maybe, yeah. Sounds like it might be.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar, but I could be wrong. Okay, so acetoacetate, because acetoacetate contributes significantly to cholesterol synthesis, one might speculate that reduced ketonemia in ketogenic athletes is the result of increased demand for cholesterol synthesis, which would deplete the source of beta-hydroxybutyrate. This, however, does not appear to be the case. Fasting increases LDL cholesterol while lowering cholesterol synthesis. Adding protein to the fasted condition without also adding a lot of fat, as in a lower fat ketogenic diet commonly used in athletes or those who do not require high ketonemia for medical reasons, would presumably have the same result. if cholesterol synthesis is reduced in these circumstances, the decrease in beta hydroxybutyrate cannot be due to competition for acetoacetate in cholesterol synthesis. Fasting not only reduces cholesterol synthesis, but also inhibits PCSK9. And that's a familiar term for people.
And I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's those PCSK9 inhibitors that lower cholesterol. It's those shots that so like if a person is taking a statin and their cholesterol isn't low enough, then they want to give them those PCSK9 inhibitors, which actually disrupt that whole pathway.
Yeah, you're right. There's a class of drugs that lower cholesterol by blocking the PCSK9, a protein in the liver that destroys receptors that remove excess cholesterol from the body.
So think about what damage that's doing to you.
Yeah.
You might get lower cholesterol, but you get a whole lot of other problems too.
Yep. So there's two, the FDA has approved two of these. The brand names are
Praluent and Repatha.
And Repatha. Yes. Yes.
I had a friend that I was trying to talk out of taking them. His doctor was telling him that he needed them, and I was begging him, don't do it.
Interesting.
This was a few years ago, and I've lost touch with him, actually.
Yeah.
Not for that reason. It was just, we just lost touch. But it was when they first came out, and I was just like, and of course I was big into Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. He's the one who has the book, The Clot Thickens, and he's one of what they call the cholesterol denier. But anyway, he has some interesting, his website is great, but his books are great too. And he was like warning against those PCSK9 inhibitors because the damage that they cause is just because it disrupts that whole pathway, and it just causes a lot of other problems. But anyway, okay.
Well, it's interesting because so the PCSK9, and I'm forgetting, I know we did read about this a little bit, but this is something that the body produces. And it basically, it sounds like it's something that makes us retain our cholesterol. And so the medication is blocking it from doing that so that the cholesterol lowers.
Right.
So it's like
that, but by disrupting that, it disrupts other things. Because
But it's like if we're producing the PCSK9 ourselves, which keeps us hanging on to cholesterol, it seems like our body wants to hang on to cholesterol.
Right.
Yeah. And so the medication, because of the doctors being fed these studies and this information about lowering cholesterol, their whole thing is, well, we got to do whatever to lower the cholesterol. I wonder how many of them kind of think about but the body's trying to retain cholesterol.
I don't think they think about it, and not because they don't care, but because I think a lot of people presume that because these drugs are allowed that they're safe. Somehow people, and they come in with studies, the drug reps and stuff come in with studies. And I don't know, honestly, how much the drug rep really understands about the studies either. They're salespeople. And I don't know if they really get down in the weeds with the studies either. I mean, I think it's kind of like being a Mary Kay salesperson. You're not going to ask how it, what I'm saying? You're not going to know, like, has this been tested and does it cause rashes? And you know what I'm saying? Right. You're not going to know a bunch of in-depth stuff about it. You're just selling it. So
they're just going to talk about what it does.
Yeah.
And assume that it's safe or it wouldn't have been approved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Okay, so I'm tying some stuff together here. I still got some loose ends, but I'm tying some together. Okay, so fasting not only reduces cholesterol synthesis, but also inhibits PCSK9, increasing LDL receptors and uptake. Because LDL concentrations rise despite these two reducing factors of lower synthesis and higher uptake, high LDL cholesterol appears to be a result of recycling. an idea supported by concurrently high HDL concentrations. So this is it. This is the lean mass hyperresponder right here. The high LDL, the high LDL, but higher HDL too.
Yeah.
So in the case of fasting or lower fat ketogenic diets in the lean, it is possible that both cholesterol synthesis and ketogenesis are downregulated to spare fat for muscle energy use, or conversely, the use of fat by muscle simply does not leave enough for much of either of these.
Okay, so it's a protective thing to keep the cholesterol higher, because it says it's the cholesterol synthesis and ketogenesis are downregulated to spare fat for muscle energy use. Because so they want to, because you're talking about someone who's lean, they don't have a lot of extra body fat, and so your body is trying to preserve as much of that as it can to use for energy for your muscles.
Yeah, well, and it's saying though that the use of fat by muscle does not leave enough for much of either of these. So I'm guessing that because then it goes on to say, in this case, glucose concentrations may then need to rise to support brain function. So it sounds like the muscles, because they're using the muscles are actually using the fat, but the brain is like, hello.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it sounds like to me. So but your body will make the glucose that it needs.
Yeah. It seems like the body, and I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but it seems like the body goes into a little bit more of a survival mode when you're very lean. Are you getting that? That it kind of tilts things around and adjusts things so that you can try to preserve as much as it can for your brain, and you don't have much reserve, right, to work off of.
Well, and then that ties in with the gluconeogenesis, because and there again, I've heard Nick Norwitz talk about this, and how in the lean mass hyperresponder, that because like he was saying that like you could eat the same exact diet, it's with the whole Oreo thing, and then immediately, like within days, your LDL cholesterol goes down.
Yeah. Now this is talking about if you're fasting or having a lower fat diet and you're lean, your body's gonna try to spare the fat for that's already there, and spare the cholesterol.
Well, and you know what? That could also be a thing, because I have heard it said that you actually, if you eat very high fat, that it actually does lower your cholesterol. I have never gotten to the point where I eat enough fat to lower it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I've tried. I don't know what amount of fat I would have to eat to do that.
Yeah.
But no amount of fat I've eaten yet. But supposedly, so I'm probably closer to like 50-50, 50% fat, 50% protein. I generally eat the fat that comes with the meat.
Yeah.
I don't consciously add extra, but really in a therapeutic ketogenic diet, you're supposed to be up like to 80%.
Yes.
Fat.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever gotten there. I mean, I've even eaten like sticks of butter, not on purpose, but I mean, like I'll just want something and I'll snack on like a little bit of butter.
Well, when I tracked a couple of weeks ago, I tracked for just one day, just kind of curious. And I was adding fat and eating a lot of butter and doing buttered coffee. And my fat percentage was 83%, I think, something like that. And I had been eating that way for a while, and I had been in a stall with my weight loss. And so I figured, okay, obviously I don't need that much fat. So I quit adding all that stuff, and I have broken my weight stall. So I think I'm probably in the 60s probably now, maybe 65%, 70% now. Because I'm still I'm eating fatty meats and, I'm having bacon and eggs but I'm just not having a lot of the added stuff. And that can make a difference, from a weight perspective, if you are like me and are needing to lose weight, it can make a difference. But, if you don't need to lose weight, having higher fat is probably a really good thing.
That's what it sounds like. Well, actually, it doesn't really say that it's bad for you to have lower fat.
Yeah.
Although because they're not saying low fat.
Well, it says, in the case of fasting or lower fat in this paragraph in the lean.
A lower fat ketogenic diet.
Yeah. And it does go on to say that this would resemble phase 3 fasting, which is the starvation, which is you don't want to be in phase.
No, you don't want to be. Where did that go? Or did we?
Yeah, that was the next sentence you were about to read.
Oh, I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let's go. Okay, let's go to this. Okay, so this would increase protein requirements. As previously discussed, this would resemble phase 3 fasting rather than traditional high-fat ketogenic diets, which resemble phase 2. Now that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so you don't want to be in stage 3.
No, you don't.
No. So stage 3 is where you're approaching death.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. So obviously,
yeah.
So I don't think I've had. I'll have to think about that and maybe watch some more Nick Norowitz, because a lot of this sounds like but I've heard him say too, though, that if you increase your fat enough, your cholesterol goes down. And like he's done these experiments where he's, various ways of manipulating his diet to get his cholesterol down. So,
yeah. All right. See you, Josephine. Glad
we're getting ready to.
Yeah, we're getting ready to wrap it up. We just have like a sentence left to read, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Gluconeogenesis and ketogenesis will occur regardless of carbohydrate intake, but substrate availability can skew the glucose to ketone body ratio. Some clinicians use this ratio, also known as the glucose ketone index, or GKI, and I've actually seen references to this in the context of cancer treatment, where the goal is a glucose ketone index close to 1.
Okay. So basically a 1-to-1 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Wow. This has been.
I think we're going to have a section on cancer, and as we move through, because I think that we're going to get to a part where they're talking about they cover the different disease processes. And like we've got a cardiovascular disease section, we've got endocrine. We're going to be getting into more.
When do we get to the Alzheimer's? And the reason I asked that question is because, of course, I just love Amy Berger, and she wrote that section.
And she said that she would come on and talk to us about it. I think that if you can connect with her and she picks a date, that we should just do that section that date. And I think that when we do that, we should read ahead.
Yeah.
And read ahead of time, and then be prepared to discuss it with her and have questions for her and have it be a different format.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Like what are the, how often are we?
Or we could go ahead and do that section like we normally do, reading it as we go and talk about it, but then have her come back on with questions, because our, people watching might have some questions. And so if they had questions, and then likewise, if we had questions too, then we could just compile that and then get her to come back on and go through it with us.
Maybe. So we can skip forward to that section for 2 weeks, one where we read, and then the second week would be when she comes on. So I think that would be fine. It would be, I love the fact that we may have an opportunity to have one of the authors come and join us. That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. And, so, if you want to reach out to her.
I'll do that. And of course, I'm sure it's probably going to be sometime in the beginning of next year, which would be fun.
Yeah,
But
that's fine. As long as we have a date set, then we can plan accordingly. And we can skip forward to that, and then we can just come back and pick up where we left off. But
I need to leave a comment for her anyway that I'm waiting for the vitamin J video. It is just, you can still find it on her blog.
Okay.
It's Keto Without the Crazy, Amy Berger.
Oh, okay.
And she is amazing. She has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I've been anxiously awaiting, because she told me that she was wanting to do a video on it. So I hope, I need to check again, but as of the last time I checked, which was, I don't know, a week or so ago, I hadn't seen one.
Yeah.
But
well, this chapter 2 is, has more of the biochemistry. We're going to be talking about the gut. Let's see. Bacterial synthesis in the gut is one section. Recommendations for dietary, plant versus animal nutrition. So there's going to be that stuff. But then starting in chapter 3 is when we dive into the different systems. So chapter 3 goes over the endocrine system. And it looks like Rob Sewis writes the beginning of chapter 3 on the liver.
We need to get him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, no, it's going to be interesting, very interesting. And we're going to be talking about metabolic syndrome in the next section, the next chapter, insulin resistance, all sorts of stuff. So circadian rhythms and sleep.
Actually, my sleep has started getting better, which I'm glad about. I'm not sure that I've done anything much differently than I had been doing before. And I think part of it was just my body was so accustomed to listening for the cat.
Yeah.
And getting up in the night that had not learned how to completely relax to sleep. And it seems like my sleep is getting better. So it's still not great, but it's a whole lot better than it was. So there is some improvement. So
the next chapter, there are a ton of diagrams, graphics, charts. I'm going to have to get working on getting all of these put into a PowerPoint presentation. Next chapter, we're going to go through polycystic ovarian syndrome and infertility.
Oh, yeah.
Menstrual regularity. And I had PCOS in my 20s. At least that's what they told me I had. So next, it's going to be an interesting chapter. So
this right here, I'm enjoying too. I mean, just what we're on is neat, because I'm pretty sure all that ties in.
Yeah.
With the reasoning behind the lean mass hyperresponder. And I just need to figure out, maybe I do need to just get fat from the butcher. And just there was a guy who Dave Mack interviewed whose diet was 95% fat, and he was doing it for mental health. So he basically eats almost nothing but fat. He does eat a little bit of protein, but it's a huge percentage of his diet is fat.
Yeah.
And I can't remember now. He's got a term for his diet, and or his version of this extreme fat diet, but maybe that, and that's what he does, is he just gets fat from the butcher, and he just eats that mostly. And then
his fat is amazing for the hormones, your whole endocrine system. It's really supportive for your endocrine system and for balancing hormones. So it'll be interesting to cover the next chapter. It looks like it's a long chapter. It goes into detail on it. I mean, the endocrine system is your whole body. Yeah. It talks about your thyroid, your adrenals. And I mean, I'm really anxious to see the adrenal section, because everyone talks about cortisol.
Yep.
And so I'm really curious to see what it has to say about that. So lots of interesting things to come.
Oh yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yes. So we're going to be reading through this book for the next 10 years, as we've discussed.
Yep. Which is fine with me.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's quite educational, and helps us know enough to be dangerous.
Yep.
So, all right, good. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate it. And visit Carrie's channel at My Metamorphosis, and I'm at Midlife Carnivore. Kim is at Carnivore Nurse Kim.
And a reminder, we are not going to have book club next week because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and we haven't had book club. We're taking a break for the
Or,
holidays.
well, not book club of this Keto
Oh.
Study Club. We're not having
Yes.
this one
This,
because it's
yes.
Thanksgiving. Yes.
We
Yeah.
are, yes, we're skipping next Thursday because, yes, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And if any of you here are in the Healing Humanity Life membership site, in a little over an hour, we are having a Zoom call, and I'm leading it because Carrie and Adam are in Australia. And
I saw that.
Yeah, they sent me a message, a video message, which I'm going to be sharing in the Zoom call for everybody. So, yeah. So show up, and we will have hopefully a nice time, a good time spending about an hour together. And yeah. So.
All right. Well, that sounds cool.
All righty. Well,
Be
thank
there, be
you.
square.
Yeah, that's right. Be there, be square. All righty. See you guys.